and welcome to Parenting on Empty. This is podcast number 2.
Mom, can I sleep in your bed tonight?
Today, we are talking about the health of the husband and wife relationship.
While you're parenting.
And while you're parenting on empty, how do you do that? I think there's 2 main things you need to consider. Number 1, how to keep the lines of communication open. What do you have to do in order to keep those lines of communication active? Is it something that's mechanical? Is it very systematic? Is it something you have to schedule? Or is it something that comes naturally? And I think it could be both, depending on your personality. And then later we'll talk about, once you've established those lines of communication, to make sure that the communication is healthy, productive, and constructive.
Well, and keeping the relationship healthy is more than just communication. As important as that is, I think another area that needs to be addressed is, how do you plan time for just you two, not the whole family? Family time is great, but there's got to be some time where it's just the 2 adults, no children involved. And usually by the time the kids are in bed, I don't think we're terribly unusual in saying, we're just tired. And I don't really want to deal with anybody else or anything else. I just want to relax and go to La La Land.
Right. And I think that that's part of the mechanics of the lines of communication, because I think it's important that you schedule some time just for the 2 of you. That's obviously not going to happen naturally, just like you said, because the natural occurrence of when it's just the 2 of us together is when the kids are in bed, and that's 9:30, closer to 10 o'clock, and we're starting to wind down. So
starting.
Yes. At the end of the day is when we are together as a couple. And so that's not a good time to have really constructive conversations, to work on the relationship as a couple, because we're both tired. And you're cranky.
Thank you.
I'm tired and you're cranky.
Well, at least we've got 2 of the dwarfs covered.
Yes.
When the kids were really young, honestly, there weren't a whole lot of options as to what we do. We don't have a lot of family in the area, or we didn't have family in the area that we could rely on a babysitter so that we could go out somewhere. And we didn't really have kind of a list of people lined up that we felt comfortable leaving our child with. And so when the kids were younger, really we didn't do much of anything at all away from them. Probably the one thing that saved us is that we had been married for many, many, many years before we had kids. That helps. We already had a foundation laid. And then the other thing is, when the kids are younger, at least they go to bed a little bit earlier. And so I don't know if you remember back then, but particularly when Mariah was younger, after she went to bed, we would sit on the couch and talk for 45 minutes pretty easily. But now with 2 kids and one older, so she goes to bed later, by the time she goes to bed, we are pretty much done. Stick a fork in us.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's true. When Mariah was younger, we had a couple hours at least to ourselves.
Right.
And we could spend time talking, and it was good communication, because we still had energy at the end of the day. But yeah. Now,
so the fact that we didn't really go out ever really wasn't that significant.
Right.
But since we got our second child, Michaela, and now the whole bit going to bed ritual with her, by the time we get done with her, and then by the time Mariah goes to bed, it's pretty late and there's not a lot left. So at this point, I think in analyzing the relationship, we have to say, if we're going to find any time at all, it's going to have to be something that we set aside intentionally, where we go away from the home and we just spend a couple hours And probably the hard part for us is we always feel like we have to do something meaningful, and probably we really don't. We can just go to a coffee shop and stare at each other.
I think that's the secret. And you're right. I feel like, well, if we're going to go to the trouble of, getting in the car.
That's such a trouble.
It is. It's a real
Turning
hassle.
it on, going out the driveway.
I have to overcome the fact that it doesn't have to be a big deal. The fact that we're going to get in the car and get dressed and go someplace, it doesn't have to be a big production.
Yeah, even just walking through the mall or something, I think the key for us in the future is going to be that we just need to set a regular time and try to adhere to it and recognize that there will always be things that come up that preclude it. If a child gets sick, we're not going to leave religiously and say, well, we're leaving anyway. You obviously just kind of go with the flow. But if you at least have something on the calendar that says we are going to try as much as possible to set aside this time for us just to go out 2 hours, nothing big. Go spend hour 45 minutes just visiting with each other and then come back.
Exactly.
And I think one good thing, it establishes something for us, sort of a touchstone, a place that we can say, well, if I need to chat about something and we haven't had a chance to get to it, I know we will at that point. And it also just gives us a breather from kids, which is really nice, without having the breather be work where you have other things that are taxing you. But I think the other thing is it also sets a really good precedent for the kids. They need to see that a relationship takes some time, that it doesn't just happen, that what we have going on is something that we are continually maintaining and working at and paying attention to, that it's not something that they just grow up expecting. Well, of course, when I get married, my relationship will be stable and perfectly fine no matter what I do, that your behavior, your attitudes, your decisions, all of that dictate the road the relationship's going to take.
That's an excellent point, that your kids model what you do, and they only model what they see, and it's what they see you do. So if they see us as a couple taking time for each other by going someplace and saying this is our time, that's going to have a lot more impact on what they think about our value system.
Yeah, I think it will. Although I believe in role modeling, but I also believe that it's really important that you talk to them about what you're doing.
Right.
And I think it's critical that when we go out, they recognize we're not just doing this to escape you guys. We're doing this because it's about us, that we have a relationship outside of you, that we are a family, but mom and dad are also a couple, and that there are things that you have to do to maintain that kind of couple relationship. And we are intentionally trying to pursue those activities and those moments to ensure that when you guys leave home, we still have something going on.
I think you touched on something that is very critical, and that is to communicate to the child or children that you do have a relationship with your spouse, that it's more than just a relationship with the kids, and that relationship you have with your spouse is a high priority. I know kids can pick up on the fact that they think we are center stage. And in many circumstances they take a high priority. But I think the child needs to know that they are not in control of the relationships. Their demands are not going to completely consume you.
Well, and I think it's important for them to recognize that they live in a stable and secure world. And that stable and secure world is that we have a pre-existing relationship in which we have invited them. They share in our stable and intimate relationship, but they don't define it. And I have talked with young people who have felt the burden of responsibility, that they are the reason that their parents stay together, that they feel like if I leave home or if I do something wrong, my parents will no longer be a couple. And that's a lot of responsibility for a kid. And I think the kid needs to know, no, you are a nice bonus to our relationship, but you are not the reason that we exist.
Right.
And I think on a day-to-day level, and we do this pretty regularly, our kids are just amazing at their ability to interrupt any conversation at any point in time. It's as if nobody else exists sometimes. And when you and I are talking and one of the kids interrupts, we're pretty good about saying, Mom and Dad are talking. You need to be quiet until we're done, and then you're welcome to say what you want to say. And I think that's another way of establishing that this whole thing is not all about you. We don't exist just to serve you. We exist to love one another first, and we share that love with you. That you are part of this family, but you are not the center pin, so that when you're gone, the family will continue to exist. It will be fine. It will be stable. It will flourish. We'll miss you.
Right.
Because you're an important part of it, but nothing will be devastated.
Exactly. That takes pressure off of them. You might not think that they're feeling that pressure because everything is going their way and they're being given first priority in every situation. But in reality, if that's the way the relationship is taking place, where the kid has first priority, they're feeling pressure.
Sometimes I think it's really hard to identify where the moments are that you need to draw those lines for your kids. Like right now we're struggling with Michaela, our youngest, and she wants to sleep in our room. If she had her druthers, she'd be sleeping in our bed with us all the time. And I think what we're trying to do is to establish for her some boundaries to say, this is our room, this is for Mom and Dad, and a married couple needs time alone, and you are not a part of that time alone. But at the same time, you want her to feel secure. She's experiencing some nightmares. So how do you determine how much you let her come in, answer the fear and nurture her and give her a feeling of safety and security, and still protect your marriage relationship and the need for privacy? And she just needs to recognize that that's our time alone. It's not the time for the kids. But, she cries, she throws a fit, really sometimes is just almost hysterical because she's wanting to be with somebody. So when do you give in and say, this time she does need truly to be with somebody, and the other times she'll be perfectly fine?
I think it does take wisdom, and it takes observation to really analyze, is my kid being traumatized by the fact that I am saying, or we are as a couple are saying, no, this is our time and you can't just come into the room anytime you want. It's case by case. Just, I think you said that, or at least intimated that. It's case by case, that if the child truly is traumatized, I think you'll know that, or over a period of time, you'll begin to recognize that this cry is trauma and they need comforting. And conversely, this other cry is, I'm angry because I'm not getting my way. I want your time and I'm not getting it. And so I'm having an outburst. And I think over time you begin to recognize the difference between the two. As long as you have in your mind, in your heart, that resolve that says, I value the health and well-being of my child, but I also value the health and well-being of our relationship as a couple, that struggle that you're having works itself out in how you analyze where the true need lies. And I believe even at a young age, 3 and 4, the child is capable of understanding that my needs are not always the most important needs in the household. And I think they figure that out. And it might be a long battle.
It's a long-term investment. Yeah.
Well, the battle, it may
Yes.
take a long time for that to resolve itself.
It doesn't pay off immediately, but it is very draining.
And that's where I think as a couple, you both have to be on the same page, where the husband isn't saying, will you just go and make that child quit screaming? Or the wife is saying, can't you do something to stop that child from screaming?
I think one thing that has helped us in this whole figuring things out is both of us being unwilling to believe that we already know the answer, and we try to impose it on the other. Mm-hmm. So when something like this comes up, I think it's critical for me to ask you, so what do you think? What do you think we should do? Here's what I'm thinking. Here's how I'm feeling. Or sometimes I don't have any idea what I'm thinking or feeling, and I just need you to kind of give me your thoughts. And then that is a springboard for me to, okay, well, maybe this is how I feel. I think sometimes it's real easy for us to just assume, well, this is the right way. And then when the other, the husband or the wife, the spouse, says, well, my perspective is a little bit different, then you have this conflict because your perspective is always different than mine.
Yes.
And I think a saving grace for us has been a willingness to talk through, here's your perspective, here's my perspective. And we have been together long enough that we have learned to respect the other person's perspective, even when we just don't agree with it. And at least I recognize that even though I don't agree with it, that doesn't mean I'm right. That sometimes I don't agree with it because it doesn't make me feel good, or I don't agree with it because it's harder to implement. I'd like to go the easy route, or I just don't understand it. I don't think that way. But I've watched you enough with the kids, and I respect your parenting skills and your personality enough to believe even when I don't see it. And so I will sometimes just, okay, we'll go with that and see.
Once you have established the importance of the need for communication as a couple, you've determined we're going to have this time after the kids go to bed, or once a week we're going to go someplace. And once you've established that, it's important that we talk about how you communicate. And one of the most important things you can do is just solicit information from your partner. You start asking them what is their opinion.
I think a lot of times when you've been together for a little while, you assume you know. And it's a tendency of human nature, and I don't really know why. I just know it is, that we like to kind of box each other in, and we think, okay, I know this person well enough, and he's going to say this, that, or the other thing. And we feel like we don't need to ask anymore because we already know them. So because we know the other person and we've been with them for quite a while and we've watched them in a variety of other situations, we kind of assume that we already know how they're going to react and what they're going to say. And when you do that, you do a disservice to the other person as well as to your relationship, because number one, you don't allow that other person to change and to grow. Number two, you deny the possibility that you are in that other person's life to help them grow, to help them expand, to help them perhaps think of things in a completely different way than they used to. I regularly tell people that I am a radically different person now than I was before I married you, because I never think the way you think, and you don't think the way I think. And that can either cause incredible conflict, which it has at times, or it can challenge you to see the world differently. It can challenge you to think in a broader way than you normally do. It can challenge you to be a better person, a more compassionate person to other people's perspectives. It can make you more perceptive. And it can kind of rub off the parts of your personality that maybe are abrasive and not something you want to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
But when you just preclude that conversation in asking the other person what they think, how they feel, how their life is right now, how they perceive what's happening in your lives right now, you are just shutting all of that down. All
right.
Progress, all growth, all truth.
Right. Maybe you think as a spouse, and maybe where you sit right now, you feel like, I know what to do in this parenting situation, and I know what to do in this relationship. I just have to convince my partner that it's the right thing. You could really be in that situation. And I think if you are, then you just have to mechanically start asking questions. Maybe you're going to have to write a list of the questions I need to ask about my spouse. And if you do that, you'll begin to educate yourself that, no, I really don't know that person as well as I thought. And maybe they've got some ideas that I've never thought of before. I'm thankful that I appreciate your wisdom, and I'm convinced that your wisdom is very helpful, very instructive. And so it's not a problem for me to say, well, what do you think?
If you don't really trust the other person's judgment, that would be an issue.
Right.
But I think if you love them, then you want to work together to trust the other person's perceptions and responsibility and all of that. And I think you can work toward that and ask questions like, if you're talking about a parenting issue, well, what end result do we want in our kids? What is it that we're aiming for? If you're talking about your relationship, what is it that how do we want it all to turn out? If you're talking about finances, what is it that we want to accomplish with our money? 5 years from now, where do we hope to be realistically? And then what do we have to do to get to that point? And are you willing, after you've kind of written those things out, are you willing to really follow these steps, even though they're structured, even though they may not be very fun, even though it may be not your personality? You're more spontaneous. You're more, let's just go with the flow and see how things turn out. It takes a lot of conscious effort. And I guess the underlying assumption is that both parties are willing to do whatever it takes. And I understand that not everybody is that way.
Right. But to keep in mind, the goal is outside of the husband and wife relationship. We are committed to each other, and we're creating this goal of we want to learn more about each other. We want to be stronger in our resolve of parenting, or we want to successfully raise this child, or we want to learn more about each other. That's our goal. We both have that goal. And so when we come to a point where we think, one spouse thinks, well, you're not holding up your end of the bargain, that you don't see that spouse as the enemy. They're the bad person in this relationship. Because if you're convinced we both have the same goal, we both want the same thing, we're just not accomplishing it quite as well as I think, the same way, or we're not accomplishing it the way I think it should be accomplished.
We're on the same side.
We're on the same side.
And getting to the goal is the obstacle. How do we get there? So let's figure out how we're going to get there in a way that's okay for you and a way that's okay for me, that we can both agree, yeah, that'll get us there. I'm comfortable with that. Exactly.
Right. So then to just communicate on that level. And what that means is then you're not pointing any fingers. You're not saying, you're a bad person. You're a bad communicator. You're not committed to this relationship. You completely eliminate those accusatory statements, those you statements, and you are looking at the goal that says we are committed to learning more about each other. We're committed to growing closer together. What are we doing that is helpful in that? And what are we doing that's not?
The hardest thing at that point is to be willing to honestly ask, what do you think about that? Instead of assaulting the person with it and saying, no, you've got to deal with this problem now. I think this is the way I feel. if this is the way I feel, it's an issue. Whether you feel it or not, it's an issue because I'm one of the people in this relationship.
Right.
And so we need to help solve this issue that I'm feeling, even if you don't feel it. So if you don't feel it, what can we do to help me overcome this feeling?
Exactly.
And it's important that I not come, if those are my feelings, it's important that I not come with an agenda of, and here's how we're going to solve it. And you have to think that it's a problem too, or we're in trouble.
Right.
All you have to be willing to do is to help me work through how I feel and acknowledge that my feelings are valid and that we are going to work together until I don't feel that way.
Right.
And I have to be willing to admit that maybe you might have a better plan to assuage those feelings than I do.
Exactly. And I think getting back to how often you need to have those conversations, I think it's got to be a weekly thing. I think because if you're in that state where we stated at the very beginning, where you're parenting on empty, where you're feeling low on energy, then it's got to, the maintaining of that relationship has to be an incremental thing. So you're not looking at this really huge problem saying, boy, we've come to a place where we don't even know each other. And honestly, we don't even like each other. What are we going to do? This is an insurmountable problem. And when you're low on energy to begin with, and you're facing that kind of a problem, it's a very daunting task.
It is, and I think that that's something that you and I need to remember more as incentive for getting out, because we frequently feel like it has to be this really meaningful thing. It honestly doesn't. I was serious when I said you can just go and stare at each other, because really it's just providing the time and the platform and the space that if something comes up, it comes up. If it doesn't, it's okay. You spent some time together, and you're banking hours of just being together, being comfortable with one another, increasing trust, increasing intimacy, so that when there is something that you actually want to talk about, work through, confront, whatever, you already have all this other stuff. You have a comfort level that's been established. It's not this trauma, huge thing that's been building and you've had no release for it up until that point.
Exactly.
And for me, I'm such a essentialist that it's, well, if there isn't really something we need to take care of, maybe it'd be better if we just stayed here and took care of cleaning the house or doing something around here. And for me, I need the reminder that, no, we just need to go away, even if it's not meaningful, even if we don't have anything significant to talk about. It's okay. We just need to go be together. Just hang out.
Exactly.
Look at the seagulls.
Just keep talking. Just keep talking. That's not going to guarantee that it's going to solve all your problems, but you're well on your way to establishing a healthy line of communication and a healthy attitude about each other.
So I'll talk to you again.